Hello and welcome to our channel, or welcome back. This is a channel devoted to promoting your practice, your actual practice of the Dhamma. And our guide is the forest monk tradition in the Theravada school of Buddhism. We're using a little booklet that I compiled some time ago as an aid to a better understanding of the Buddha's teaching so far as it concerns the actual practice and not the theory. Okay, today we're on page 20 and we're still talking about samadhi. Samadhi as a form of merit, of making merit or boon, doing something, you might say, virtuous. And the samadhi is the third way or form that we can make merit. At the top of the page, it says, samadhi is mental effort. Mind must be parasuto, or pure, with nothing to disturb it. Samahito, stable, gathering all its strength to a single point. So that's the goal. Don't get angry, don't get frustrated or disappointed if you have not perfected the goal yet. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to be able to sit still, to have conquered the body sufficiently that we don't listen to its protests, telling us to scratch or to itch or to move or adjust, etc. And we have stabilized the mind sufficiently that we're not identifying as with torture or being abused or something being unfair or unreasonable. We are just quieting the mind sufficiently that we can use it as a tool to investigate itself. This is quite a rare intention. We don't find it in the world. We are not encouraged to investigate and discover the nature of our own mind. The virtues of the world, the calling of the world is to explore it. And we have sciences that explore the outer reaches of the universe. Then we have sciences that explore the tiniest fraction of an atom, some tiny particle that nobody's ever seen. And then everything in the world, whether it's archaeology or geology or biology or any of the ologies, but not self-awareness, not the investigation of the nature of the mind. So we say we're gathering all its strength to a single point. Yes, we want to, I call it sharpening the knife. So we have a tool, which is meditation, which is something like sharpening a knife. When the knife is nice and sharp, in this case single-pointed, we don't throw it back in the drawer and call it a day. We use the knife to cut the food, to prepare the meal. So a sharp knife makes preparing the meal easier than with a dull knife. And the same with meditation. We sharpen the knife and then we put it to work. So in the Theravada tradition, the forest monks, we are going to think. We are not trying to establish a level of consciousness where it's empty, where it's just blank, where, quote, nothing is happening. We want a concentrated mind so it can investigate itself. It says, and I can't pronounce these words properly, Kamatthana, ideal for performing its duty to the fullest. So there, I guess I got ahead of myself. There is a function, there's a duty, there's an activity that we're going to use the mind for, and we need to be able to focus it in order for it to do its work to the fullest. This is a quote from a 20th century monk in the forest monk tradition. Samadhi as ekagata chitta, or one-pointed mind. Eka is one or single, and agata is the top point, having nibbana as its object of concentration. So I'm not sure about this. I have asked monks and nuns why in statues of the Buddha there's sometimes a flame or a sharp point at the top of his head in these statues. And usually I get the answer they don't know. But I'm guessing, it's just a guess, that it's a way of visualizing a focused mind that is one-pointed, and at the top point. The statue of Moses with horns coming out of his head was the result of a mistranslation of some scripture, and Michelangelo was told that Moses had these horns coming out of his head. So that's just an aside. I have a master's in religious studies, so my mind jumps to these images. Samadhi is the passive aspect of wisdom. Wisdom is the dynamic aspect of samadhi. So there's a result. I don't know any other way to articulate it. Sitting quietly without moving, including not moving the mind, keeping it as still as the body, is actually passive. And the dynamic is when wisdom arises to that concentrated mind. And that wisdom will always be a wisdom that shows us something about, quote, our mind. Of course, technically it's not our mind, but it's masquerading as our mind until we have examined all of it sufficiently and disowned, let go of, rejected it as belonging to me, as constituting being mine. And that samadhi, that wisdom rather, is life transforming. If it doesn't change the way you see the world and the way you interact with the world, then it hasn't been from the deepest levels of wisdom. So samadhi develops wisdom, and wisdom develops samadhi. I mentioned in a previous talk a three-legged stool of virtue, samadhi, and wisdom. Sila, samadhi, or concentration, and wisdom. And you can't take out one of those legs of the three-legged stool. It will become useless. It'll just be a piece of wood on the floor. So we're not going to have the level of samadhi that is required to access wisdom if we don't have a foundation of a wholesome, moral, virtuous conduct, a moral and wholesome life. That is the first leg of the stool. Then we get, we're capable, we're able to concentrate more fully and deeply, and as a result of that, wisdom, the conditions for wisdom to arise is the way I prefer to think about it. It's something like the bubble from in the deep sea or a deep lake, making its way to the surface, and then it just pops when it reaches the surface, and that's an insight. That's what Vipassana means. It means insight meditation. This thing bubbles up from the deepest levels of Buddha's teachings, the pure Dhamma, pure Buddha mind. It pops up into the conscious mind that we call me, and that is the greatest blessing that we can hope for. And there's lots of these bubbles working their way to the surface. We need to quiet the surface of the mind so that they can pop up and we can be aware of them. Stillness is the heart's dwelling. Well, stillness is just another word for quieting the mind, and this heart mind, it's the heart mind. We're no longer craving, we're no longer wishing and wanting and expecting and demanding, and we're no longer rejecting or refusing or denying or not liking or hating. We have stilled all of that emotional tendencies, and then the pure mind has a place to manifest itself. Regardless of the samadhi level, and in this case we're talking about jhanas, you might have achieved, there's 8 of them, but typically you'll only come in the literature, typically only talks about 4. There are 8 jhanas. So it says, regardless of what jhana you have achieved, 1 through 8, it won't automatically produce any wisdom. This is the teaching of a great teacher in the late 20th century, Mahabhuwa. This is what distinguishes the forest monk tradition and the practice of Vipassana from the practice of samatha or concentration or tranquility meditation. Those people who have the ability to enter those jhanas certainly are highly skilled, and they have very incredible experiences, sometimes resulting in supernatural abilities, but that doesn't even suggest that they're liberated, that they have overcome the delusion of self, or that they're living in a state of nibbana. Samadhi subdues kilesa. Samadhi subdues kilesa. Panya kills them, and sati watches them both. So there's a trilogy of sati, samadhi, and panya, where sati is mindfulness, samadhi is concentration, panya is wisdom. So we have to subdue these thoughts that are enemies. We call them kilesas or sankharas. It's all the crap that arises into the level of consciousness when we're trying to focus our attention on the meditation object. But the better we get at it, we begin to subdue them. There are fewer and fewer of them arising, or if they arise, they don't cause any trouble. They're just there for a mind moment, just a fraction of a second, and they're gone. They're not disturbing us. And as a result, as I've said, we see them as they are, which means this is not me, this does not belong to me, this is not myself, this is just garbage arising to the level of consciousness. That's panya. If we see them that way, we're not interested in them. They can't capture our attention. They just arise and pass away moment by moment. They have no significance in any way whatsoever. And then sati, mindfulness, is watch the whole process. The one who knows has been witnessing this whole phenomena. And sati knows what has happened. Without sati, it's not a complete process. Samadhi nimitta. So there are these things called nimittas, and we're going to talk about them a little later as well. So here's this level of samadhi that we talked about on the last page. It was level 2. Upakara samadhi is direct, non-verbal, a vision, it's non-verbal, telepathic communication. The meaning appears unambiguously in its entirety. So there's a number of different forms that nimittas take. The one we're talking about here is you may see an image, a vision of some kind, a picture. You're not thinking about it. You just see this image, and the meaning of the image is unambiguous, and it's complete. So, in dream analysis, people try to remember their dreams and the images they had, and they might journal about it. They may have a therapist who helps to analyze the dream, and it's a kind of speculation. Regardless of how good the therapist may be or what tradition he uses, what that particular image in a dream or that event in a dream might mean is still really subjective. But with a nimitta, you see an image and you know exactly what it means. It's a picture form of some insight. Other insights appear as a thought, and that's why in this tradition we're not opposed to having thoughts, and we don't feel like thoughts are disturbing our meditation. They are our meditation if they're the exploration of Dhamma. If they're thoughts about anything in the secular world, then yes, they're a distraction, they're a disturbance. So, for real insight practice, vipassana means insight, samadhi need not be very great. This other great teacher of the 20th century, Ajahn Chah, that's a quote from him, in this school, we're interested in vipassana meditation at the second level of concentration, and not these deep jhanic experiences. Peaceful states of mind developed by concentration in one holding wrong views will never lead to wisdom. So the point being, it's possible to be really good at concentrating, but with the wrong understanding of what you're doing, and it doesn't result in your own purification of mind. It doesn't result in your own liberation because you have the wrong view, which is number 1 of the Eightfold Path. And if you have wrong view, everything else turns out wrong. That's why the Eightfold Path, the first word is right. A right view, right understanding, right speech, and so on. One who practices both tranquility, that's samatha, and insight, vipassana, after attaining the first jhana, takes up the practice of insight by way of purification of view. So in this statement, if you are practicing samatha and you get into the first jhana, then that's good enough. It's not essential that you enter the first jhana. in the forest monk tradition, but if you do, you're practicing samatha, that's far enough, because in the first jhana we still have thought, we still have the ability to think and to direct the mind to investigate Dhamma. And in the following jhanas, we lose that ability to use the mind as a tool. Now it says, okay, if you're practicing samatha and you get into the first jhana, okay, but now start practicing vipassana. This other one says, if you're practicing vipassana, that's insight only, he or she, after fulfilling purity of virtue and setting up a mindful body contemplation, does not follow the way of tranquility, that's samatha, but the way of pure insight, such as insight purification of view, right view and right understanding, intention, the first two of the Noble Truths. So this is a reinforcement of the definitions I've tried to share. If you're practicing samatha in the forest monk tradition, you get to the first jhana, that's good enough. Now consider practicing insight and use your concentration to explore your mind or the mind, so that wisdom can arise and be a blessing to you and others. If you're practicing vipassana, insight meditation, and your purity of virtue, if you've built a strong foundation of virtuous practice, wholesome practice, and mental, speech, and activity, we don't want to develop a deeper and deeper form of tranquility. What we want to do with that mind is practice insight purification of view. If we don't have the right view of what Dhamma is teaching, certainly if we don't have the right view of how to practice, or why we're meditating, or why we're meditating this way and not some other way, etc., etc., it's just not possible for us to gain the benefit that is promised to us if we have right view and we have right understanding. So in the forest monk tradition, let me reiterate, we are studying to end the cycle of rebirth, not to get to heaven, not to have a better, more pleasant or pleasurable rebirth as a human or some angelic being. We're trying to stop that cycle altogether, because no matter what form the rebirth takes, no matter how glorious a place in heaven we may be reborn, it's all temporary. It's all subject to anicca, it's subject to change, it's unstable, we can't depend on it, and it all, no matter how glorious and beautiful it might be, there's a sense of self having that experience. And so in the forest monk tradition, we're trying to end the delusion of self in any form whatsoever. That distinguishes it from any religion that teaches us how to get to heaven, and all of them require good moral conduct. You can't get to heaven if you're behaving badly. And remember, heaven is a state of mind, but whatever it is, you can't get there if you don't have good moral conduct. And we're not trying to get there as the final destination. We pass through that condition on the way to ending the cycle of rebirth. Thank you for your patience and your time and your patronage. I hope you've been blessed or will be blessed as you contemplate these ideas in the coming days. I would ask, if you feel blessed, please press like and subscribe, and let's hope that the Dhamma, this beautiful, pure, beneficial Dhamma, can be shared by many. Thank you. See you next time.